The security alert hit my phone at 2:47 p.m. on Thursday afternoon. My apartment door sensor had been triggered. I was 300 miles away in Washington, D.C., seated in a classified Treasury Department briefing, which meant one thing with absolute certainty: whoever was inside my apartment had no business being there. I stepped out of the meeting and opened the camera feed. The footage was razor-sharp. One advantage of holding security clearance that mandated regular threat assessments was authorization for government-grade surveillance equipment in my residence. My sister Vanessa stood in my living room, surveying the space with that distinctive look of casual superiority she'd perfected over the years. She moved straight toward my home office, barely acknowledging anything else. I watched her test the office door handle. Locked, as always. She retrieved something from her pocket, appeared to be a tension wrench and pick set. When had she acquired lock-picking skills? 4 minutes. She defeated the lock in 4 minutes. Not terrible for someone untrained. The door swung inward and she vanished into my office. I switched to the interior camera feed. Vanessa walked directly to the wall safe concealed behind my framed Treasury Department organizational chart. She'd clearly been in my office during previous unauthorized visits, probably using the emergency key I'd entrusted to our parents for genuine emergencies. She studied the electronic keypad, attempting several combinations. Mom's birthday, Dad's birthday, her own birthday, all incorrect. Then she pulled out her phone and made a call. Moments later, she positioned the phone against the safe's keypad. Some type of digital bypass application, most likely. I mentally noted to alert building security and upgrade my systems. 5 minutes passed. The safe clicked open. Vanessa's expression transformed into pure triumph as she pulled the door wide. She reached inside and extracted the sealed document folders I'd secured there. Her face shifted to confusion as she examined the contents. These clearly weren't what she'd anticipated. I knew precisely what she was holding. 3 folders containing bearer bonds issued by the United States Treasury. Combined face value, $500,000 in protected government securities. I was authorized to maintain as part of my role as a Treasury Department financial analyst specializing in securities fraud investigation. She couldn't possibly comprehend what she'd stolen. To someone without training, they probably resembled decorative certificates or vintage stock papers. I watched her shove the folders into her oversized purse, reseal the safe, and rush out of my apartment. I remained motionless for a long moment, processing what I'd witnessed. Then I made 3 calls. First, my direct supervisor at Treasury. Second, the Treasury Inspector General's office. Third, the Secret Service Financial Crimes Task Force. All 3 responses were identical. Secure everything immediately. File the theft through official channels. Under no circumstances attempt personal recovery of the securities. Those are registered instruments, my supervisor said, tension evident in his voice. Serial numbers tracked in the federal database. Any attempt to cash or transfer them triggers automatic system alerts. But Sarah, your sister just committed federal crimes. Multiple federal crimes. You understand the implications? I understand. Treasury doesn't overlook theft of government securities. This isn't something we can ignore. I'm not asking you to. I'm reporting theft of protected federal instruments. Follow standard protocol. A pause. The response team will move quickly and thoroughly. Good. I returned to the briefing, though I absorbed virtually nothing from the presentation. My mind replayed the security footage on loop. My sister systematically violating my home to steal $500,000 in government securities. Vanessa had always been the favored child. Beautiful, charismatic, effortlessly social in ways I never achieved. Our parents worshipped her. She'd married young to a moderately successful dentist, produced 2 picture-perfect children, and occupied a suburban McMansion our mother endlessly praised to her social circle. I represented the problematic daughter. Too serious. Too career-focused. Too disinterested in conventional family achievements. I joined the Treasury Department immediately after graduate school with a master's in forensic accounting. 8 years climbing through progressively classified positions. My current assignment involved tracking international securities fraud and money laundering operations. My family had zero understanding of my actual work. When they inquired about my job, I provided vague responses about financial analysis and government employment. They assumed I was some minor bureaucrat shuffling papers in a cubicle. They'd certainly never questioned why I maintained high-level security clearance or why armed federal agents periodically appeared to conduct security interviews with my neighbors. I caught the next train to Philadelphia, reaching my parents' house at 7:00 that evening. Vanessa's Range Rover occupied the driveway alongside our parents' sedan and Uncle Mike's pickup. A family dinner, apparently. Perfect timing. I let myself in to find everyone assembled in the dining room. Vanessa sat in her customary spot, radiant in a designer dress that likely cost more than my monthly rent. Her husband Derek was absorbed in his phone. Our parents shuttled dishes from the kitchen while Uncle Mike distributed wine. "Sarah," Mom registered surprise. "I didn't realize you were coming for dinner." "Spontaneous visit," I said, maintaining a light tone. "Had some time and thought I'd drive up." "How wonderful," she beamed. "Set another place, honey," she called to Dad. "So rare having both girls here together." Vanessa glanced up from her phone, flashing that practiced smile she'd perfected in high school. "Hey, big sister. How's the office grind treating you?" "Busy, government work." "I really don't." She laughed, Derek joining in. "All those bureaucratic forms and procedures. Can't imagine tolerating it." I sat across from her. "It has its interesting moments." "How've you been?" "Wonderful, actually." She exchanged a meaningful look with Derek. "We've been making some exciting financial moves lately." "Investment opportunities." "Oh?" I kept my expression neutral. "What kind of investments?" "Just some securities." Derek's financial advisor recommended them. Very sophisticated instruments. Probably too complex to explain, but the projected returns are excellent. My parents returned with the final dishes. Dad began carving the roast while Mom settled in with a satisfied sigh. "Vanessa was telling us about her new investments," Mom said proudly. "Derek's practice is thriving. They're really building generational wealth." "College funds for the kids," Vanessa added, reaching for her wine. "Want to ensure they have every advantage." "That's admirable," I agreed. "Where did you source the capital for these investments?" "That requires substantial funds." Derek cleared his throat. "We've been saving aggressively, making intelligent financial choices." "Exactly." Vanessa's smile broadened. "Actually, I should thank you, Sarah." "Thank me?" "I stopped by your apartment earlier this week. Used that emergency key Mom and Dad have. Hope you don't mind." I was nearby and thought I'd grab that book you mentioned. She hadn't mentioned any book. We both understood she was fabricating. "Did you locate what you needed?" I asked quietly. "I found your little safe, actually. Behind that boring map in your office. And since you never bothered changing the combination from Mom's birthday, which is frankly terrible security. By the way, I took a peek inside." Mom and Dad exchanged confused glances. "Vanessa, what are you talking about?" Mom asked. "Sarah's been hiding cash in a safe." Vanessa laughed. "Well, not cash exactly. Some kind of old bonds or certificates. They looked ancient. Probably something Grandpa left her. And since Sarah obviously wasn't doing anything with them, just letting them collect dust, I figured she wouldn't mind if I borrowed them." The room went silent. "Borrowed them?" I repeated. "For the college fund. Those papers were just sitting there doing nothing, but Derek's advisor says they can be cashed and reinvested for actual returns. We're helping you, really. Otherwise, you'd just leave them there forever." She pulled the folders from her purse. She'd actually brought them to dinner like trophies, setting them on the table. "See? Just some old government bonds or something. The advisor estimates they're worth a few thousand. Maybe 10,000 if we're fortunate. Still nothing to dismiss." Derek leaned forward to examine the documents. "These do appear legitimate. The firm should be able to process them next week." "Vanessa." My voice remained very calm. "Did you break into my home?" "Don't be dramatic." I used a key. "Did you force open my locked office door?" She waved dismissively. "I learned some techniques from YouTube. Wasn't that difficult?" Did you bypass my safe security system? There's an app for that. Honestly, Sarah, if you're securing valuables, you need better protection. Anyone could have accessed it. I looked at my parents. Dad was frowning now, beginning to recognize this might be more serious than Vanessa was portraying. Mom appeared confused, caught between her daughters. You committed breaking and entering, I said to Vanessa. You defeated a secured lock, compromised an electronic safe, and stole the contents. Stole? Vanessa laughed. We're family. It's not stealing when it's from your sister. Besides, you clearly weren't using them. When did you even look at those papers last? Last month. During my quarterly audit. Your what? I pulled out my phone and placed it on the table. Those aren't old bonds from Grandpa. Those are bearer bonds issued by the United States Treasury. Current series. Total face value, $500,000. They're registered federal instruments I'm authorized to hold as part of my position with the Treasury Department. The color drained from Vanessa's face. What are you talking about? I'm a senior financial analyst with the Treasury Department's Securities Fraud Investigation Division. I hold top-secret security clearance. Those bonds in your purse are protected government securities I maintain custody of as part of my work investigating international financial crimes. Derek's hand froze on his wine glass. Government securities? Specifically, instruments used to track and identify securities fraud patterns. Each bond is serialized and registered in the federal tracking database. The instant anyone attempts to cash, transfer, or even verify them with a financial institution, the system automatically flags the transaction and notifies the Treasury Inspector General's office. You're joking. Vanessa's voice turned shrill. You're fabricating this to frighten me. I reported the theft 4 hours ago to my supervisor, the Inspector General, and the Secret Service Financial Crimes Task Force. They've been monitoring your movements since you exited my apartment. The doorbell rang. Everyone jumped except me. I'd been expecting this. That, I said quietly, is the response team. The doorbell rang again, followed by authoritative knocking and a commanding voice. Treasury Inspector General, we need to speak with Vanessa Morrison. Mom's face went white. Sarah, what's happening? Vanessa committed multiple federal crimes. Now she faces the consequences. Dad stood. I'll answer the door. Dad, no. Vanessa grabbed his arm. Don't let them in. Sarah's lying. This is some twisted joke. It's not a joke. I met her eyes directly. You broke into a secured residence. You defeated anti-tamper measures on a protected safe. You stole $500,000 in United States Treasury instruments. You just informed this entire table you plan to cash those instruments through a financial advisor. That's theft of government property, tampering with federal security measures, and attempted securities fraud. All federal felonies. The knocking intensified. We have a warrant. Open this door immediately. Derek pushed back from the table, face ashen. Vanessa, what have you done? I didn't know. Her voice cracked. How was I supposed to know she had government bonds? She has a boring office job. She never tells us anything about what she does. I hold top secret clearance, I said. I can't tell you anything about my work. That's what clearance means. Dad opened the door. 4 federal agents in tactical gear entered, led by a woman in a Treasury Inspector General jacket. She displayed her credentials. I'm Special Agent Lisa Martinez, Treasury Inspector General. We have a warrant for the arrest of Vanessa Morrison and recovery of stolen federal securities. She looked directly at Vanessa. Ma'am, stand up and step away from the table. This is insane. Vanessa was crying now. They're just papers. Sarah's my sister. This is a family matter. Ma'am, the instruments you stole are united. States Treasury bearer bonds with a combined value of $500,000. They're registered federal securities protected under 18 U.S.C. Section 641. Your theft of these instruments, combined with your stated intent to cash them, constitutes multiple federal violations. Stand up, please. Vanessa looked wildly around at our parents, at Derek, at Uncle Mike. Somebody do something. She's sending me to prison over stupid bonds. $500,000 in protected government securities, Agent Martinez corrected. Not stupid. Federal property. 2 agents moved forward, pulling Vanessa to her feet. She attempted to resist, but they were professionals. Vanessa Morrison, you're under arrest for theft of government property, defeating federal security measures, and attempted securities fraud. You have the right to remain silent. Sarah, please. Vanessa's makeup was running, black mascara streaming down her face. I'm your sister. We grew up together. You can't do this to me. You did this to yourself, I said quietly. You broke into my home. You stole federal property. You announced to everyone at this table your plan to cash those bonds. I didn't make you do any of that. They secured handcuffs on her wrists. Derek stood frozen, staring at his wife as though seeing a stranger. Agent Martinez picked up the folders from the table, examining them briefly. All three present. Serial numbers match the reported theft. She looked at me. Dr. Chin, we'll need you at the field office tomorrow to verify the instruments and provide a formal statement. Of course. What time? 9:00 a.m. Ask for Agent Martinez. She nodded to her team, and they began escorting Vanessa toward the door. My sister was sobbing now, her designer dress wrinkled, her perfect hair disheveled. Mom, Dad, don't let them take me. Please. Our parents stood helpless, watching their golden child arrested by federal agents in their dining room. Wait. Mom's voice was barely audible. How long? How long could she? Agent Martinez paused at the door. Theft of government property carries up to 10 years. Defeating federal security measures adds another 5. Attempted securities fraud is another 20. The U.S. attorney will determine final charges, but your daughter faces substantial federal prison time. 35 years, Dad's voice broke. For taking bonds from her sister? For stealing $500,000 in protected federal securities, sir. The Treasury Department doesn't negotiate on these charges. It would compromise national financial security. They escorted Vanessa to one of the black SUVs in the driveway. Through the window, I watched them secure her in the back seat, still crying and protesting. The dining room fell silent except for Mom's quiet weeping. Finally, Uncle Mike spoke. Sarah, what exactly do you do for the government? I investigate international securities fraud, money laundering schemes, criminal organizations attempting to manipulate financial markets. I work with classified information and handle sensitive federal instruments as part of my investigations. And Vanessa just stole $500,000 in Treasury bonds actively tracked by federal databases. Yes. The moment she walked out of my apartment with them, the system flagged the theft. When she mentioned them to her financial advisor, he would have been legally required to verify them with Treasury. That verification would have triggered an automatic federal investigation even if I hadn't reported it. Derek sank into his chair. The advisor? Oh God. When he tries to cash them, he'll be questioned as a potential co-conspirator. Correct, I confirmed. Treasury will investigate whether he knew they were stolen. If they determine any involvement, he faces charges too. We didn't know. Derek's voice was hollow. I swear we had no idea she'd stolen them. She told me she'd found some old bonds in your apartment and you'd said she could have them. That's not what happened. She broke into my home, picked my office lock, cracked my safe, and stole federal property. The security footage documents everything. Mom looked up at me, face streaked with tears. Security footage? I maintain surveillance systems in my residence. It's required for my clearance level. The footage has been submitted to the Inspector General's office. It shows Vanessa's entire break-in, including timestamps and her lock-defeating techniques. You were watching, Mom said slowly, when she broke in. You were watching it happen. I was in Washington, D.C. for a classified briefing. I received the security alert on my phone and accessed the camera feed. And you just watched her steal from you. You didn't call her? Didn't try to stop her? I contacted the Treasury Inspector General's office and followed protocol for reporting theft of federal securities. That's what I'm required to do. Dad's hands trembled. She's your sister, Sarah. Your own sister. How could you let them arrest her? Over money? Over federal crimes, Dad. This isn't about money between siblings. This is theft of United States government property. If I'd failed to report it, I would have been charged with conspiracy and lost my clearance. My career would have ended and I'd probably be in prison alongside her. But surely you could have worked something out, Mom pleaded. given her a warning, told her to return them. The bonds were in her possession for 4 hours. In that time, she contacted a financial advisor and initiated the process of cashing them. That's attempted securities fraud. There's no working it out with federal charges. The law doesn't care that we're related. Uncle Mike rubbed his face. Jesus Christ. Vanessa always thought the rules didn't apply to her. They usually don't, I said, because you've all spent our entire lives making excuses for her, smoothing things over, fixing her mistakes. But you can't smooth over federal crimes. The Treasury Department doesn't care that she's attractive or charming or that Mom and Dad love her more. That's not fair, Mom said sharply. We don't love her more, don't you? I looked around the table. When's the last time any of you asked about my work? My life? When's the last time you visited my apartment or showed any interest in what I do? You've been to Vanessa's house dozens of times. I've lived in Philadelphia for 8 years. You've visited twice. The silence provided the answer. Vanessa assumed my work was meaningless because you all assumed my work was meaningless. She thought those bonds were just old papers because none of you ever considered I might have anything of value. That I might be successful. That my career might actually matter. Sarah? Dad started, but I interrupted. I hold top-secret security clearance. I earn $167,000 annually. I've received 3 commendations from the Secretary of the Treasury for my work dismantling international fraud networks. Last year, I helped recover $90 million in stolen securities. But none of you know that because you never asked. Derek stared at me like I was a stranger. You make... Vanessa told me you probably made 40 or 50,000. She told you that because she assumed it. Because you all assumed it. Because I don't live in a McMansion or drive a Range Rover or discuss my salary at family dinners. Where does your money go? Uncle Mike asked, genuinely curious. Investments, retirement accounts, charitable foundations. I live simply because I prefer it, not because I can't afford otherwise. But Vanessa looked at my lifestyle and assumed poverty. She assumed those bonds in my safe were forgotten inheritance rather than active federal instruments I'm responsible for protecting. Agent Martinez had returned from processing Vanessa. Dr. Chin, one more thing. We found evidence in Mrs. Morrison's phone records indicating she'd been researching safe-opening techniques for 2 weeks. She also made multiple searches about cashing old bonds and whether family members could claim them. This wasn't impulsive. She planned this. The weight of that revelation settled over the room. 2 weeks, I said softly. She spent 2 weeks planning to rob me. The U.S. attorney will use that to demonstrate premeditation. It significantly strengthens the case. Agent Martinez glanced at Derek. Mr. Morrison, we'll need to interview you as well. You're not under arrest, but we must establish what you knew about your wife's plans. Derek nodded mutely. Agent Martinez left, and silence consumed the room again. The trial took 9 months to reach court. Vanessa's attorney attempted everything, claiming she thought the bonds belonged to the family, arguing she didn't understand their value, suggesting I'd given permission to access my apartment. None of it worked. The security footage was devastating. It documented her systematically breaking into my home, picking my office lock with tools purchased specifically for that purpose, using a safe-cracking app on her phone, and stealing the folders containing the bonds. Her phone records revealed 2 weeks of research. Her text messages to Derek exposed she knew the bonds might be valuable. She'd written, "Found Sarah's secret stash. Might be worth serious money the day she stole them." The financial advisor testified she'd contacted him about old Treasury bonds and asked about maximum returns with no questions. Asked. He'd refused and reported the conversation to his compliance department, which flagged it with Treasury before Vanessa was even arrested. The federal prosecutor methodically walked the jury through each element of each crime. Theft of government property. The bonds were federal instruments. Vanessa had taken them without authorization. They were worth over $500,000, defeating federal security measures. She'd researched and purchased lockpicking tools, used an app to crack the safe's electronic security, attempted securities fraud. She tried cashing the bonds through a financial advisor, knowing they weren't hers. The jury deliberated 6 hours, guilty on all counts. The judge sentenced her to 12 years in federal prison and ordered $500,000 in restitution, plus an additional $150,000 in fines for the security violations. Vanessa sobbed throughout sentencing. Mom and Dad sat in the gallery looking a decade older than 9 months prior. Derek had filed for divorce 3 months into the trial. The judge addressed Vanessa directly before imposing sentence. You didn't steal from a store or stranger. You systematically planned and executed theft from your own sister, targeting her specifically because you believed she was vulnerable and her work unimportant. You violated her home, her security, and her trust. The fact the stolen property was federal securities makes this a matter of national security, not just family drama. This court cannot and will not treat theft of government property lightly, regardless of familial relationships. Mom tried speaking to me after sentencing. I wasn't cruel, but I was clear. She made her choices. Mom, every single step she chose to do this. She's still your sister, and I'm still the daughter you couldn't be bothered to visit or ask about. I'm still the one whose career you dismissed as unimportant. Vanessa didn't develop the idea that my work was meaningless on her own. She learned it from you. Mom flinched. That's not fair, isn't it? When's the last time you asked about my job? When's the last time you expressed pride in anything I've accomplished? You bragged about Vanessa's house, her husband, her children. What have you ever bragged about regarding me? She had no answer. 3 years after Vanessa's arrest, I was promoted to senior supervisory analyst, overseeing a team of 12 investigators working international securities cases. My clearance was upgraded to top. Secret SCI, the Secretary of the Treasury, personally presented me with a Distinguished Service Award for my work on a case recovering $340 million in fraudulent bonds. My parents didn't attend the ceremony. I didn't invite them. Vanessa will be eligible for parole in 9 years. The restitution judgment isn't disappearing. She'll make payments the rest of her life. Her house was foreclosed. Derek remarried. The kids live with him and barely speak to their mother. Sometimes I wonder if she finally understands what she stole. If she's realized her boring bureaucrat sister was actually protecting $500,000 in federal securities as part of work that matters on a national scale. But mostly, I just focus on my work. The securities markets don't care about family drama. The fraud cases don't need validation from people who can't understand them. The work just matters. And that's enough. My apartment has military-grade security now. Biometric locks, encrypted safes with tamper-evident technology, AI-monitored surveillance systems. The Inspector General's office approved the upgrades. Treasury paid for installation. I never changed the emergency key policy, though. My parents still have a key. They've never used it to visit. I'm not bitter. I'm just done expecting things from people who fundamentally never valued what I do. Last month, one of my investigations led to arresting an international fraud ring that had stolen $2.3 billion in securities from 7 countries. The case made headlines across financial news networks. 3 foreign governments sent official commendations. I thought about sending the articles to my parents. Then I thought about years of boring office job. And when are you going to do something important with your life? And Vanessa's doing so well. Maybe you should be more like your sister. Instead, I filed the commendations in my office and moved to the next case. Some people spend their entire lives waiting for family to recognize their worth. I decided to stop waiting and just keep protecting the financial security of the United States. The bonds don't need my family's approval to matter. Neither do I, Vanessa writes occasionally. Letters from federal prison in West Virginia where she's serving her sentence. They start with apologies and end with requests, asking if I can talk to the prosecutor about reducing her sentence, help with restitution payments, write letters to the parole board. I don't respond. Not out of cruelty, but because some lessons can't be learned if someone keeps rescuing you from the consequences of your choices. She spent our entire lives believing rules didn't apply to her, that her charm and beauty and status as the favorite daughter meant she could take what she wanted without consequences. Federal. Prison is teaching her otherwise, and I'm teaching myself that my worth isn't determined by whether my family recognizes it. The work is enough. The cases I solve, the frauds I prevent, the securities I protect. That's enough. Some people are born into families that celebrate their success. Others build their validation from classified briefing to classified briefing, commendation to commendation, until the work speaks for itself so loudly even the doubters can't pretend not to see it. I built mine. And no one, not even family, can steal that away.